Thanks for listening to the Tech Tools for Teachers podcast, where each week we talk about a free piece or two of technology that you can use in your classroom. I'm your host, Shanna Martin. I'm a middle school teacher, technology coach, and personalized learning coordinator for my district.
And I'm her producer / husband, Fuzz Martin.
Today, we are going to talk about Pear Deck, Kahoot, and Cram.com.
Cram.com.
It's quizzes week.
Part 1.
Part 1. Because it's episode 11.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to be tricky here because episode 11 will have part 1.
Okay.
And episode 12 will have part 2.
Whoa.
I was trying to be super clever.
So clever, man.
I'm so proud of myself.
That's good. That's good.
It's a little play on numbers.
Yeah.
And this needs definitely a part 1 and a part 2 because there's so many options out there.
There are.
So I thought that would be a way to break it up a little bit.
That sounds great. I'm excited this week because the Pear Deck one has about the most adorable logo that I've ever seen.
Oh, and you work in advertising.
I do work in advertising.
So that's really saying something.
Yeah, I can't think of, I think maybe in my advertising world, the chicken poop logo was probably the
cutesiest one that you guys have done?
The cutesiest one that we've done, yeah.
But it was poop, so.
It was fertilizer made by organically grown and raised chickens.
And there's like a little egg logo, right?
Yeah.
It's an egg or something.
Well, they make eggs too.
Right, but the Pear Deck it's
and
so
they also
adorable.
eat and do other things.
Right.
So.
All right, let's focus on quizzing instead of logo. I mean, logos are fun to talk about, but.
Always.
Not quite the focus of this week.
No. So let's talk about quizzing.
Quizzing in classrooms. I feel like as teachers, we do it all of the time. Because you're always trying to get a sense of what your students can and can't do. So you've got to figure out fun and engaging ways to get students to like share their information and ask questions and interact with your classroom. And just lecturing and standing up and talking in front of a room usually doesn't engage students unless you are super awesome at presenting information, which some people are.
Every day is a TED Talk.
If every day is a TED Talk, I think that you could just, be working for TED and make money that way.
And talk.
So today, first, we're going to talk about Pear Deck, the quizzing platform that has the cutest logo that you've ever seen with a smiley face.
It has a smiley face, and then they have different versions. One has a mustache. It's pretty cool.
It's cute.
Yeah.
Actually, and I got a Pear Deck sticker. I should throw in my little, yesterday I spent some quality time at Ed Camp.
Nice.
Free. And I don't, if other teachers out there, I had not heard of them until about this year. I knew of them a little bit, but I went to my first Ed Camp, and it was Ed Camp Elmbrook. Little shout out there. And it was amazing. They've grown from year 1 with 90 people to year 2 with 170 to year 3 close to 300 teachers and administrators. And it's on a Saturday, and it's free. Crazy. And it's teachers gathering together to share information and share ideas and share their passions and help one another out. And they call it a non-conference because there are no formal sessions. Everyone that day just shows up and shouts out what they want to talk about, and they kind of organize it. And then you go meet like-minded people and go talk about things that you want to learn more about. It's amazing.
And they said if you weren't liking what you were learning about, you could just get up and
walk out and go find one that you are going to use. And actually, one of the sessions was Kahoot. They talked a little bit, which we'll talk about today. I was not in that session, but I heard some conversations afterwards with just cool things going on in classrooms. So if you ever get the chance to go to an ed camp, sign up. It's free. You get to go. You get to hang out. Breakfast and lunch were included. And just get to hang out with like-minded teachers. So that's my little shout out for Ed Camp. Okay, back to Pear Deck now.
Yeah, cool.
So Pear Deck, I know a lot of teachers have started hearing about it. It's kind of growing in education world. It's been around for a while. Pear Deck is super cool because it interacts with Google Slides.
Nice.
So, it's awesome. Pear Deck, you are able to, a lot of people are familiar, you sign in with Google, and I know teachers who have been apprehensive to jump in on Pear Deck because they see it and they're like, wow, that's super cool. It's probably totally overwhelming to do, but it's not. It's a Google add-on.
Okay.
So what you do is you would sign up, like sign in to the little sign-in page for Pear Deck, and then it connects it to your Google account, and then it adds to like your add-ons list. So when you're in
Google Slides.
In Google Slides, you can either start a Google Slide set through Pear Deck.
Yep.
Or you can take a Google Slide presentation you've already created from like 6 years ago and add Pear Deck to it.
Oh, cool.
So you don't have to start from scratch every time with Pear Deck, which is awesome. So teachers who are starting to maybe want to add more of these things and make their classrooms more interactive, you don't have to start from scratch. You can take things you've already done and Pear Deck just integrates right into it, which is awesome. So you go to your Google Slides once you have your little add-on put on. You click add-on, you click Pear Deck, and then you can open your Pear Deck add-on, and it just puts this little, I don't know, side bar, I guess, on the right-hand side of your presentation, whether it's a new one or one that you've already created. And from there, you have all these choices. So you click like beginning of lesson, and they give you here, do you want to like ask your questions for students, like pose a question to your class? Or do you want to put some like reflections about today's topics? Or you can go through in the middle of your presentation during your lesson. You can add charts and graphs, and do you think this is true or false? Or how are you understanding the content that we're talking about? Or how are you feeling about this? And you can add all these like interactive slides right into presentations that you already have, end of lesson, exit tickets, things like that. And then students are able to sign in. So once you have your Pear Deck all set up, you add all these interactive slides in. And mind you, this is the free version. There is a paid version that's got even more things to do, where you can like draw and stuff into your Pear Deck. But the free version, you add the extra slides as you want to. You can pose questions in the middle of class. You can choice. So if you just go down that right-hand column, you can kind of see all of the different things Pear Deck has to offer.
Okay.
And then from there, you click like ready to go, share. And once you're done, you're going to present your Pear Deck, and it comes up with a sign in. Your students would sign in, and they type in joinpd.com, and then they get a little code. And I think on the website we'll put kind of how the code looks, kind of visual for that. And
it's just like a 5-letter code.
Yeah. And the students can use that on a tablet, a Chromebook, a phone. And then as you go through your presentation, the slides come through on their device, and they interact with the slides that you make that are interactive. So they're able to pay attention if there's certain points you're making on one slide, and then there's an interactive slide, and then there's different points you're making on the next slide, and they're interactive slides. So it's really easy to use, and it connects with already created presentations or new presentations that you want to, and it's really cool and engaging for students to use in their classroom. I've seen it used with, like review lessons. I've seen it with posing new content and kind of get an idea of where your students stand in new content. If you're introducing a new topic. One of my students created a Pear Deck. She had seen me playing around with it in in the economy class I was teaching. We did like a grocery shopping lesson, and the kids were like pretending to be in a grocery store, and they were pretending to be their like an adult grocery shopping, and how would you balance budget and all that kind of stuff. So I did that with my students. She's like, hey, we're doing presentations in class. Can I use Pear Deck for my presentation? Because I want to see if the class is paying attention to me when I'm talking.
Yeah,
which,
that's cool.
As an 8th grader, I was like, that's awesome. So she put Pear Deck slides into her presentation for the class to see if the class was listening to her, and she quizzed them all at the end, like, oh, great, did you learn anything from what I taught you today in my presentation? Which I thought was fantastic. So students can use it that way too, if they're going to be teaching the other students in the class content.
So where do the answers go? Do they go into the teacher dashboard or what?
Yeah. So as a teacher, then you're able to pull it up and you can see their answers. It'll kind of graph out or they'll explain. Depends on the type of question,
Okay.
but you can see their answers. The one thing with Pear Deck is if you have the free version, you don't get to keep it, versus if you have the paid version, you can actually pull like the analytics almost on like how students are answering in all of your slides. So it's a little different.
Okay.
The free version versus the paid version. But the free version, you can see their answers afterwards, but it's not stored.
Okay.
In the paid version, it's going to be like stored information that
Gotcha.
you can pull back up later. But you definitely, there's one slide you can put at the end of lesson. It's circle how you're feeling about the content. And the kids can literally like tap a smiley face as to if they're comfortable, not comfortable. So if you're doing like a formative assessment and you just want to see really quick, like, does my class get it? And you've got a bunch of red frowny faces. Clearly, that's kind of a notation to you that they don't understand what's going on.
Right. It's kind of like if you've ever been to the Atlanta airport, when you leave the restrooms, they have a little like
Plus Delta.
Yeah. How satisfied were you with your bathroom experience? And
Really?
And you tap on a smiley, a frowny, or a smiley, a neutral, or a frowny face.
Shopko used to have one of those.
Yeah.
Oh,
Shopko used to be around.
Shopko sounds very Wisconsin-y too. Like,
It does.
Clearly, we're Midwestern. There's a Shopko. I mean, not
Right.
very much longer.
Shopko.
They're all
Oh,
closing,
you mean down
but-
by the Piggly Wiggly?
Yeah, the Piggly Wiggly, the Shopko. Whoa. Yeah, so we're definitely, that was Midwestern. Okay. So there's that.
The website is smartinwi.com for a reason.
Because we're in Wisconsin.
Because we're in Wisconsin.
And that's why I say today instead of like today.
Today.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Because there's only one day, and that's
Today.
Today.
All right. So Pear Deck, if you've never tried it or you're kind of intimidated, because sometimes when someone pulls out a Pear Deck, you're like, holy cow, that must be a lot of work. It's not. Try it out. It's super fun. And even if you throw 2 or 3 slides in, every slide of your presentation doesn't have to be interactive. You can do maybe 2 or 3 in a presentation just to try it out.
Yeah.
You don't have to do an entire presentation of interactive slides because that gets overwhelming for
Right.
anybody. But yeah, try it out. Do it.
Do
Pear
it.
Deck. It's awesome.
Do it.
And they have the cutest logo ever.
Completely agree.
All right. So next we're doing Kahoot. Kahoot. Kahoots. You always talk about how like all of these different education websites have really fun names.
They do.
And because Pear Deck and Kahoot and Cram all tell you, right, that it's going to be a quizzing website. All right.
Cram does.
Cram does. Well, does it though?
I mean,
maybe you might just be really hungry. I don't know. You're cramming like food down your
pizza
throat. Like I'm starving.
in my face.
Yes.
No,
yeah.
I think with cram, I think of studying. That's
Okay,
the
yeah,
only
like
one.
cramming for a test. Yeah, I get that. Kahoot. That shouts Kahoot. Okay.
Yeah.
Kahoot has been around. I know Kahoot's popular. Everyone's busting out a Kahoot because it's easy quizzing software. You go in, sign in with Google, create your slides, put in your information, and all of a sudden you got a cute little multiple choice like slides that are interactive. You can quiz students. You get feedback instantly. They have ranking charts, so you can see like so and so is gonna be number 1 and they're answering the fastest. Kahoot has made updates like throughout the years, so they've changed it where you, like as a teacher you can control if the kids put in a sign-in name that you don't like or that kind of stuff. They always are updating and taking teacher feedback, which is awesome. So some things about Kahoot, though, just to keep in mind, if you're using it with younger students, there's been a couple of teachers who are like, hey, this is super awesome, except for like the bottom 4 choices, usually like red, yellow, blue, and green, and they have shapes next to them.
Okay.
And sometimes that can get confusing if you're doing like a shape lesson.
Oh, yeah.
If the answer is square and they can't read the word square and they're looking for the shape square, the word square may not be on the slide, like on the answer part that's got a triangle or something. So Kahoot, you got to be careful just a little bit with, if you're using it with younger grades, that they can read the words and stuff.
Good to know.
But to jazz up your Kahoot, because I know kids, once they play them, they get super rowdy. Like, everyone's yelling and screaming over the Kahoot music. By the way, apparently on YouTube, I have overheard this.
Okay.
At EdTech Camp, EdCamp, that there is a 10-hour long YouTube track
of the
Kahoot music.
Oh, man.
And if you've never heard the Kahoot music, it's special. So, 10 hours of Kahoot music on YouTube if you're interested. I'm sure one of your students has already found it, but if not, I just found it for them.
I found it. Yeah.
And you found it. There you go. Yeah. 10 hours.
That's awesome. That's great.
I feel like that could be a form of like, oh, so you want to not follow directions during the Kahoot? Then you can sit and listen to this all day. It's the only song that's going to play in my classroom tomorrow. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
All right. So.
Better than Baby Shark.
Well, that song ends. The Kahoot music never ends. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So, but when you're trying to jazz up your Kahoot, they're super fun. There's challenge. You can play challenge modes. You can play all kinds of things. But just some things to think about. Oh, instead of just having students sitting in their desks when they're answering, they can work where, like, each, if you have space in your classroom to move desks out of the way, but having students maybe one answering per, like, one iPad or Chromebook answer per pod. Mm-hmm. And then students physically have to get up and move to where their answer would be. So if, like, you're going to answer in the red box and the yellow box and the blue box and the green box, kids actually have to get up, those who want to answer red. So that way they're not just sitting in their desk, like, hitting the button, answering all the time. But they can physically get up and move and answer those different multiple choice questions, just to get them moving around your classroom. Another thing is if you ever think about, every time you restart a Kahoot, you get a different class code, but it's the same quiz. So if you want kids not all in the same Kahoot at the same time answering, so you could do, like, different groups, could all be doing the Kahoot, but that way they all have a sometimes an easier chance. There's only 5 kids in a group, so not competing against 20 other kids. If there's one kid that always seems to be answering behind, and it's not that they don't know, but maybe they have processing. Yeah. They need more time and stuff. So you could start Kahoots in different parts of your classroom, maybe using just one screen, or having kids have one screen up, like on a Chromebook, and then have kids on their phones or other Chromebooks, and then run it so your Kahoot has different sign-in codes so they can play at different times too. Sure. So just trying to differentiate the Kahoot, because it's played so much and the kids really do enjoy it, but getting them moving or getting them thinking and challenging them a little bit. Another thing is, always with your Kahoots, I know some teachers will go through and just, like, play random Kahoots, but also pay attention if you're in younger grades teacher, that if you're playing random Kahoots in your classroom, you kind of check content first, because some of the content is a little bit more advanced or mature. Yeah. There's been some, like, health Kahoots that have been created, and I've heard some issues with the younger grades, like, oh, hey, yeah, that was not covering the same health stuff that my class covers, because that's like 9th grade health class. So gotcha. Always doing those things and keeping in mind. But yeah, trying to make Kahoot, always trying to think of new ways to use Kahoot, not just sitting in your desk, even though it's always super fun and interactive. But if you want to play that music for 10 hours, you could just do that during your lunch hour too, if you're interested. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Great. Maybe you should play that, like, in your next meeting. We could actually. You know what is funny? So we're talking about this, like, gamification and quizzes and such, and we actually use a piece of software at our office for the HR department mostly, and it's called Adobe Captivate Prime, which kind of sounds like a transformer. But it's a really cool way of it's a learning management system, is what we call the LMS. We have LMSs too. Yeah, you probably do more than we do. Yeah, because you teach for a living, and we make puns. Yeah. But no, we use it for, like,
we're implementing it for things like, do you know where the fire exits are in the building?
So safety, like quizzes and things.
Safety, handbook type issues.
HR stuff.
There's a bunch of HR stuff. Like if you need to get, we have a
Process.
forklift, and if you need to get certified on the forklift, that you've taken the certification and all that. And we can check people off and see which badges they have and which they need in order to do X, Y, or Z. So
there's in education world, we're starting to do more of that, like bloodborne pathogens for anyone who's ever taken the bloodborne pathogens.
Yeah.
At the beginning of every year, we always do that.
Right.
Now they're starting to do that more online too. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like
Yes.
the out of classroom versions of taking quizzes.
Yeah. So this one's, it's not free. It's
Right.
Adobe.
Yours is, yeah.
Right. And so it's $4 per user
Right.
per month, which, obviously you wouldn't use in a school.
No, because you can use Kahoot
Right.
or Pear Deck
Right.
or cram.com.
Cram.com.
Let's talk about it. So cram.com is online flashcards.
Okay.
I don't know the best way to it's online flashcards. But a couple of cool things about the online flashcards is that cram.com gives you the flashcards, and it's kind of like Quizlet. And we'll talk a little bit more about Quizlet next year. Next week. Yep, lost my mind completely. It's fine.
Taking a little break. No, I'm just kidding. We're not. We'll be back.
Yes, because it's episode 12, and we have to have the second part in episode 12.
Right. We're not going to leave you hanging.
Whole point. So in cram.com, what you're able to do is create your online flashcards with your definitions, like Quizlet or like a few others. But what's cool about their flashcards is if you click above the flashcard part, you are then able to just play games with your information. So if you've ever played a Jules game where you have little jewels and you're like matching things, or if you've got a rocket ship and you are shooting a little rocket and spelling things to like have the rocket blow stuff up, it does that automatically with the deck of flashcards that you've created. So there's no extra work in making the games out of it. So I'll have students where you take your deck, you review your flashcards with like a partner, and once you've reviewed your flashcards or your vocab or whatever you're doing, your concepts you want them to know, then they can go ahead and they can play their games, and you just click the button and the games have it loaded in. So then they're playing the Jules game with the matching, or they're typing in their information. The one thing about the rocket ship one is you have to like actually type out the entire question, which it also works on typing skills for sure for some of them. And from there, they're able to review in like a fun way that no one has had to create any extra work for. It's already just there and built in. So I've been using this one with my students quite a bit just because they can work individually. And cram.com, if you've got the link and it's public, I just load that link, the cram.com link to my flashcards directly into my Google Classroom, and the students have the flashcards there and they have the games to review, and I didn't have to do any extra steps to do that. So I don't have to run a program or anything. They can just do it all individually. So cram.com, it seems lesser known, or in education world maybe, where we're at, because there are so many like Kahoots and Pear Decks and things like that. And my one suggestion is with cram.com is their additional decks for extra like practicing to browse by subject seems like an older group. So I would say like middle school, high school. I wouldn't necessarily use these with elementary school. Because then they have like browse by subject where they've got choices as like military, medical, law enforcement, alternative medicine, careers. Like those are additional decks put into cram.com that other people have created. So they just seem kind of like an older audience that would be using cram.com.
Sure.
But definitely super useful and easy to work with as a teacher, and just load your information. Or students can, like they can create their cram.com account. They can load in information that they need to know, or they want to review for something.
Sure.
And then they can play the games as an option, or just do the flashcards. So that's kind of cool.
That is very cool. Excellent.
Yeah. So I feel like there's a lot of information in our three little things. They're all a little different, but they all have definite uses for being able to quiz your students formatively, get some background knowledge to know what they know, so you can move ahead with your lessons, or how you're going to tweak lessons, or how students are going to adjust if you're in more of like a student-driven environment. So I think that they're flexible, but you can kind of use them anywhere. So
perfect.
Yeah.
What are we talking about on episode 2 of part 2 of the online quizzing?
Part 2 of the online quizzing is going to be, and we're going to throw out, there's a couple ideas here because, well, so we're going to do.
This may change.
This may change, but we're definitely talking about Quizlet.
Yep.
There's one called Quizzes. GimKit we're going to talk about.
Okay.
What? And we might chat a little bit about Google Forms.
All right.
And using those in like a quizzing format. So
great. That's
on the docket for now, but I might throw another 1 or 2 in there. It's possible that there might be like 5 in episode 2.
Whoa.
Or there might be like 2 in episode 2 because, well,
you're going to need to get a bigger hard drive.
Then I'll have to do like an episode 3, and then...
Whoa, yeah.
That kind of throws off... Well, I could, because, episode 3 would be 13. Anyway, as we did.
We could work all the way to the next...
We will just talk about quizzing for the next year and a half.
Episodes 11 through 19.
Yes. All right. Well...
Will be all about online quizzes.
And cute logos.
So, lock in.
There you go. Well, thanks for tuning in. This has been the Tech Tools for Teachers podcast. If you ever have any questions, you can find me on Twitter at SmartInWI. And if you want to get more information on the links to the technology discussed on this episode, you can visit smartinwi.com or on Facebook.
Yeah, new Facebook, Tech Tools for Teachers podcast.
There's new episodes each week. Thanks for listening. Go educate and innovate.
The ideas and opinions expressed on this podcast and the Smart NWI website are those of the author, Shanna Martin, and not of her employer. Prior to using any of the technologies discussed in this podcast, please consult with your employer regulations. This podcast offers no guarantee that these tools will work for you as described, but they mostly work for us, so hopefully they'll work for you. We'll talk to you again real soon. Thanks for listening.